and welcome back to my channel. I am the Spell Singer, and this is my ongoing review of Way of the Tiger Gamebook series. And in this review I'm going to give you a quick look at this title with its book number, and I'll read the blurb, talk a little bit about the plot and the locations for this book, and then go into some of the game mechanics, look at that adventure sheet. I'll run the artwork through this video, talk about my own likes and dislikes, any fun facts I might have, any errors, and then we'll finish on a summary and a score for this book. So yeah, this is book 6, Inferno. It was released in 1987, and it was written, of course, by good old colleagues Jamie Thompson and Mark Smith. And the illustrations, all that good artwork, is by good old Bob Harvey also, so he's back with more of his quality artwork for this series. And this cover here, this is the cover that us Brits got back in the 80s, sort of depicting the final stages of this book. And if you owned this book over in the States, then you would have got this cover here, kind of depicting more or less the same area of the book, sort of that end part, that end game. You can see the Black Widow there, which is like the ultimate nemesis for this book. But if you were to buy this book, this more modern release, you will get this cover here, which kind of harks back to that original one with the big snake head. Quite cool. And that's the one I've got. I didn't own this one back in the day because, to be honest with you, I thought book 5 was the ending. Until I found out this one came out, but by then I'd got a Super Nintendo, and that was my thing. So let's read the blurb for this one. So it says here, "Listen well, Avenger, I will say this only once. If you do not aid your friend in his hour of need, then you are no better than those who hold him prisoner in the everlasting darkness. You have proven yourself victorious on the battlefield and repulsed the dark forces of evil from your fair city, but now a more subtle evil stirs. Your friend and comrade Glaivas is somewhere in the rift, held ransom against the Sceptre that is your badge of rulership. Do you dare risk everything you have achieved to rescue your friend? The darkened tunnels of the rift hold danger and death at every turn and lead into the very centre of Orb." So yeah, there you go. A brief description of what to expect in this 6th instalment. So the plot and the locations for Inferno. Now this is like the climax. So we thought to the series, Way of the Tiger. Now, having risen from orphan to pretender to king, the Avenger, so your ninja character, he travels to the rift. And this is kind of like a great big chasm in the heart of Orb to rescue his comrade, like it stated, Glaivas, the ranger. And he met Glaivas way back in book 1. So you're good pals. Your friend Glaivas and I think his name is Dorlejeune. They've both been kidnapped actually. So Glaivas is the one that you're sort of most concerned in, but Dorlejeune, he kind of travelled in there occasionally to sort of have a bit of a punch up and see how many of these villains he could take on, but he happens to be there as well. So they both decided to take a bit of an exploration into the rift just to sort of see how many nasties they can dispatch with. And they've been gone a month. So word finally comes, and it's not good news. Guess who shows up? Cassandra. Yeah, Cassandra shows up, one of the trio of ne'er-do-wells. And she's been living in the rift as well, so it seems like the place to be at the moment. For a while, actually. She's been down there in the abyss, and she basically says that if you ever want to see Glaivas again, you've got to bring the magic Sceptre of leadership into the abyss. And to make matters worse and more awkward, she is with Foxglove. So she's brought Foxglove. Now, if you remember her, she was leader of Erskine-Cast's secret police back in book 4 when you bumped into her. And you stand a good chance of having kind of this thorn in your side throughout the whole adventure, if you so choose. So the aim is to make your way into the rift, and proceed down through all the many tiers and mount a rescue before escaping with hopefully Glaivas. And as you can see from this map here, this is the map of Orb. The rift is just outside Ursman Cast. And if we zoom in, get a bit of a better close-up of just how big this chasm is. And that's where you spend about 95% of this book. Okay, so yeah, that's the map. So a bit about the game mechanics and the artwork, the adventure sheet for book 6. So generally the mechanics, they kind of follow suit, they follow on from the previous books. No major changes. Combat remains pretty normal, more or less, whereby obviously if you strike your enemy with a punch or a kick, the enemy will have a defense number, and you need to roll higher than this number using your 2 dice. And then essentially remembering to add always and subtract your modifiers. So if you have a special weapon or some armor or whatever, you get to add or subtract your modifiers. And if your score is higher than the enemy's defense, then you have successfully hit your opponent, whereby you roll a single die, and the result is the damage you inflict upon your opponent, the enemy. And every opponent has an endurance score, just as you do, and you need to reduce this to 0, obviously, and then it's your opponent's turn, and you just keep taking turns until one of you is out. I already talked about the blocking and all the inner force and fate in the other reviews, but there are a couple of special rules for this book, book 6, so that it states you can carry over your character from book 5, of course. We already know this. Character progression's a really key aspect of Way of the Tiger. And but if this is your first time reading this book in the series, then of course you simply start from afresh. But I imagine it would be considerably tougher if you decide to do this. If you do carry over, you get all your shurikens back, you get your flash powder, you get your endurance and your inner force all restored to their top level. And during the adventure, there are some sort of nice sections where you can don a disguise, which will assist you later on in the adventure. And the book will question, as to how you are dressed. Do you have the disguise or not? Or what type of disguise do you have? And then will lead you in a certain direction depending on your answer. So that's a nice mechanic, and it crops up throughout this book. Otherwise, mechanics are more or less business as usual. As is the adventure sheet, actually. It's pretty much standard. I mean, there was a revamped one for the new series, which I'll show you in a second one. But this one here, it just states your usual combat ratings, your shurikens, your ninja tools, obviously where you put your endurance, your notes and your special items. But when the new release came out, the adventure sheet looked a little bit like this, which is not great, is it? It's like they took everything that didn't work and shoved it all into this one. There's barely any room to write anything, so I'd stick with the original one, the OG. Yeah, so that's your adventure sheet. Now the artwork for Inferno. Bob Harvey, he gives a suitably dark and twisted labyrinthian feel to these illustrations throughout this book. Lots of statue-ridden stone corridors, catacombs, dungeon-like caverns, because like I say, most of this book is set in the Rift. And the book is essentially all in this chasm, so it's going to be very dark, very oppressive. And of course, old Harvey would have been slightly limited in terms of variety, yet he does manage to avoid complacency by sort of including your warrior friends from past books, and self-portraits of sort of allies and close-up images of all your enemies that you encounter. So I love the fine detail that Harvey portrays, manages to bring to life time and time again throughout this series. He is the perfect artist for Way of the Tiger, in my opinion. And as always, I've got a favourite picture. This is Foxglove. So yeah, she's tagging along. If I read you the passage that goes with it, just to give you an idea, there's the artwork for Foxglove in this new version. Yeah. On the next day, Foxglove is sullen and will not speak to you. Tomorrow you will sight the last hills and forest before the rift, and you will have to set the horse free and continue on foot. And when you camp, at the evening, however, she comes close to you, her eyes shining with tears, and says that she is too lonely and afraid to go on. Avenger, no one has shown me the smallest shred of kindness for longer than I can remember. I will go with you to the rift, as I must. But if you do not embrace me now, my heart will break and I shall lose my mind. Will you comfort her as she desires, or refuse her kindness? So it's like a moment of reflection, but it is a big deal and it's a big decision because it will impact on you quite heavily later on in the book. So there's always kind of nice little surprises that are interwoven with the artwork. Yeah. Okay, likes and dislikes for Inferno. Unfortunately, with the 1980 release, many of the original fans felt the ending was a bit abrupt, a bit frustrating, a little bit of a disappointment compared to the previous high-quality entries like Avenger, Assassin, and Usurper. Those first 3 books, almost a trilogy, if you like. And the original release suffered from a lot of continuity errors as well, and editing mistakes, and it was known to have a bit of a broken path through it, where you could kind of get stuck in loops. Nobody likes that. Or find it nearly impossible to win, legitimately, without any kind of prior knowledge. I also found that the book kind of punishes that kind of smart play decision making, such as when you capture a specific character, and it kind of leads to failure at the very end, which always caught me off guard a little bit. The narrative was seen as a little bit too linear at times, but it is a dungeon crawl nevertheless, rather than that kind of strategic open world experience that we've already gotten used to in those earlier books. Now the cliffhanger ending caused probably the most upset with this series, leaving you wondering if another book was actually planned, or if the character was simply destined or doomed to be kept with the Black Widow in that spiderweb. However, with the modern Nagara Entertainment Edition, these guys kind of revised the text a little bit, fixed all the kind of logic problems in that, cleaned up on all that continuity error, making this version probably much better regarded than the original 80s paperback one. So it's highly recommended by fans and the authors themselves to sort of play this updated version rather than the old one, the original one. And also the game kind of shifts from the tactical world-ruling feel of those previous books to a more traditional kind of claustrophobic dungeon crawl, if you like, through this underworld. And players also have noted that those unique ninja skills, if you remember those, like the arrow cutting and the immunity to poison and the picklock disarming traps and all that good stuff that the main character, Avenger, has, is rarely used in these later books. They're there in the first 4, they're mentioned in 5, but in 6 and 7, they're not so much 7, but certainly in 6, they're barely mentioned. Which is a real big shame, actually, because everybody likes to have the opportunity to use, those specialised abilities, right? And the gameplay is very difficult, requiring a strong, optimised character, and precise kind of decision-making, lots of map drawing to navigate the rift. So if you are starting this book from afresh and you're not using the previous books to develop your character, you are going to struggle somewhat. I've got some fun facts as well. Jamie Thompson and Mark Smith finally reach section 424 and they write the end as opposed to be continued, as it was implied, in those previous books. But this one bore a stamp of finality, if you like. So Mark and Jamie didn't expect to be writing another book. This was supposed to be the last one. It was always intended to be that way. Now, Night Books, the publishers of Way of the Tiger, they kind of dragged their feet over whether or not to renew the series or continue it, which probably didn't help. Not knowing whether to commit to more of these books, Mark and Jamie had been pitched these other ideas, other series like Duel Master. So Jamie got involved with Duel Master. He got an offer from Armada, and so by the time Night Books finally woke up, Jamie was already deep in designing, those rules and those complex kind of structure to Duel Master. And of course, that left Mark to finish off Inferno, who just dumped Avenger, your ninja character, into that web with the big spider. All these years later, you got Fabled Lands Publishing. They got hold of the Way of the Tiger rights, and they enlisted the editing team at Megara Entertainment, headed up by Richard Hetley, and to fix some of the sort of logic problems that kind of held Inferno back, refurbish the text a little, and now have this all-new edition. So obviously this one here, all-new edition, which is a good thing. And of course, author David Waters had the permission from Mark and Jamie to continue the series with Book 7, Redeemer, which we'll review next. So obviously, David Waters, he was the guy that he was offered the chance of doing a prequel as well, which was Book 0, Ninja, which we did at the beginning of this review series. So he was able to give us the ending we finally deserved with Redeemer. So yes, I will do that one next. So it all worked out more or less in the end. Now, there are a couple of errors in this book that I touched on already, so I'll just mention a few of those. So on reference 330, you're told that you're entering the 3rd tier. And on reference 208, sometime later on, as you've descended, you're also entering the 3rd tier. So just a bit of a continuity thing there. I'm not sure which it is, but doesn't really matter. On reference 249, after you acquire a dark elf costume, it mentions how Foxglove was waiting for you, even if she wasn't with you. So a bit at the beginning when you decide whether she comes with you or not, either way, she's with you at that point. That can happen a few times actually through this book, I found. There's a lot of inconsistency of who is with you, what costume you're wearing, but it was all clearly fixed with the new editions, so that's good. Right, let's do a summary and score for Inferno. Now, after Overlord and Warbringer, so books 4 and 5, that whole warming a throne and counting your taxes, I think Avenger is finally going on an adventure, yay! And the book is kind of like a deviation from all the prior ones, quite a few ways actually. For one, there is a very small amount of combat available to you throughout this adventure. So in most playthroughs, I had no combat at all until the very end. And even then it can be avoided. You might have to fight Tuchev maybe, Valm and Cassandra, but you can avoid them, more or less. Not an awful lot of combat. So second, most of the book exists kind of in two forms, with Foxglove or without Foxglove. Now, most of the second tier is affected by your ability to acquire a costume too. So for the most part, the action here is quite smooth, silently guiding you onwards, deeper and deeper into the rift. After 5 superb books in this series, the ball kind of drops a little bit with Inferno. Part of the problem is that this book really feels anticlimactic. After the ending of Warbringer, certainly after that epic battle, that kind of Warhammer-esque battle, this one, I don't know, it's just a little bit dull in comparison. Another one is that the narrative doesn't flow as well as the previous 5 books either. And the ending of this book, it just annoyed me because it was a serious lapse of judgment, on the author's part, to have a cliffhanger like that. You've invested all the time in this Avenger character to have him dumped in the Black Widow's lair, caught in a big web. Yeah, that didn't work, really. Inferno, a bit of a disappointment after what was a relatively good series. Yeah. But get it if you want to complete your collection, but don't expect a satisfying resolution to the story. Now, Smith and Thompson's combo as authors rivals that of Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, in my opinion. As Gamebook writers, in particular, their world building is second to none. The world of Orb is fascinating. It's brilliantly depicted in those other books like Talisman of Death. You remember that fighting fantasy book? Same place, along with obviously Way of the Tiger, but also Duel Master series. Some really great consistency across the world of Orb. And of course you have characters such as Tuchev and Cassandra, all very memorable, carrying over from the other books. But Inferno, as a game book, it really isn't up to standard, and certainly not the standard of the first 5 books. And there were other outside factors in play at this time, at the time of writing this book. It's slightly lackluster in comparison. Many of the paragraphs are devoted to paths that are not only unnecessary, but seem designed to be undesirable and to make your path even more difficult through the rift. So, for example, bringing Foxglove with you into the rift, at no stage does bringing her along actually make your quest easier. So even if you bring her along for your first attempt, why on earth would you bother in your subsequent attempts? It wouldn't make sense. Repeat performance, you would soon learn that she just doesn't need to be there, which is a shame because she's a great character. So unless you actively seek out fights, there is a lack of dice rolling. Some won't have a problem with that, but you kind of miss it after a while. The battles, in this book, I think you can avoid combat through to the conclusion, more or less. Apart from, like I say, Tuchev. And this is that Tuchev battle only really lasts about 3 rounds before other outside factors take over. The book was clearly not finished properly. As fans of the series know, there were obvious editing and continuity errors that I've touched on, involving whether Foxglove is with you, concerning your journey between the various tiers of Orb's rift, and capturing Cassandra near the start of the book with no indication that this might be a bad idea kind of resulted in failure literally at the penultimate paragraph of the whole book. So that was really tough. A bit of a shock, actually, to first-time players, but it was a disappointment to readers who, like all the other books, expected a reward for that kind of smart play. Never mind. So the book's cliffhanger ending, it was not only frustrating, but it was also a bit confusing. So for years, there was a legitimate confusion as to whether another book was intended, or if the words "the end," meant that Avenger was doomed to remain in a spider's web for all of eternity. Avenger's ninja skills, like I touched on, barely mentioned in the book. The interesting politics, from war and the war, from book 4 and the war gaming, from book 5, the ideas from those last 2 books were a bit lacking in this one. The interesting side of it, kind of watered down. It just turned into a predictable dungeon crawl. But in any event, it was good news for everyone when good old David Waters got the commission to finish the series and give us Redeemer, which is the next book, and ends on a high point. But for now, a score for Inferno would be a 6 out of 10. It felt very rushed and a bit of a missed opportunity, which is a shame, but at least we have Redeemer now. So yes, the next book I'm going to review is Redeemer, book 7, and that is my review of Inferno. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this book. What did you think of the ending? Did you read this book back in the 80s? Were you gutted by it? Did you have to wait till you were in your late 40s, early 50s before you could find out what the future held for Avenger, or did you not care? But let me know either way. Maybe share the link of this site if you think other people might be interested. And I will catch you all in the final review for this series, Redeemer. Take care, look after yourselves.